Hi everybody, today I'm going to be talking about why you bloat so easily and how to never bloat again. About 10 years ago, I was bloated about 80% of the time. I would bloat after just a small bite of food, after water, after meals, at random times, in the morning, in the evening, I would bloat all the time. And once I finally realized the root cause of my bloating and healed that, then I was able to overcome it, not bloat anymore. And then now the past 7-8 years, I don't bloat anymore. I don't bloat after meals. I feel light, I feel satisfied, and you can get there too. So if you don't know me already, my name is Kaylee. I'm a certified nutritionist and gut health specialist, and I love helping people to heal their chronic gut issues at the root naturally. So the first reason that you could be bloating, there are a few that I'm going to go over, is if your microbiome is off. Now this is the most common and the biggest reason for bloating. Now what this means is, this is called gut dysbiosis. This is when you have an overgrowth of pathogenic microbes in your gut microbiome and you don't have enough of the good microbes in there. The pathogenic microbes produce a lot of gas when they're eating fiber and your leftover foods in your colon. So they go to eat them, that's fermenting them, and it produces a lot of gas. Now the gas expands and takes up more space than solid material, and it pushes against the edges of your colon. If you have SIBO, that's small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, then you're also going to get this in your small intestine too. Now this pressure from the gas leads to a lot of bloating. Now an important thing to note here is this root cause is not tied with bloating immediately after a meal. So sometimes people will wonder, why am I bloating first thing in the morning? Now that could be you bloating from your dinner, because it takes a little while for your food to actually move through your digestive tract. It spends about the first 3 hours in your stomach, then it moves into your small intestine. It takes several hours to go through your small intestine, several hours to go through your large intestine, and the speed varies greatly between people. But anyway, you could be bloated in the morning, and that could be your dinner reaching your large intestine, or partway through your small intestine starting to get a lot of gases. You could bloat like randomly in the afternoon, and that could be you bloating from your breakfast. So note that if you bloat, it's not necessarily what happened immediately before that could be causing it. So second reason is if you have a weak digestion. So by weak digestion, I mean like weak stomach acid, not enough bile flow, not enough digestive enzymes, poor nutrient absorption. This is what I mean more technically, but it can also just be that feeling of like food doesn't work well, like I'm not hungry, I'm not breaking this down well, or if you see like large chunks of food in your stools, you're not digesting properly. If you have pale greasy stools, you don't have enough bile. If you've taken blood tests and have a lot of nutrient deficiencies, or if you just have a lot of symptoms of nutrient deficiencies, like hair that breaks easy and is weak and is not growing, or brittle nails, or things like that, or your cycle is messed up if you're a woman, or you're not even ovulating, then all of those would be signs of nutrient deficiencies, which can tie back to a weak digestion. So if you have a weak digestion, what's going to happen is you're not going to break down your food thoroughly. So you eat food, your body's working on digesting it, but it doesn't have all the tools it normally has to break it down. So when your food is in your stomach, it doesn't have as strong of stomach acids, there's not as much digestive enzymes to break it down thoroughly enough. When it goes into your small intestine, if you don't have enough bile flow to emulsify the fats, if you don't have enough digestive enzymes to break your food down thoroughly, you're going to end up with a lot of waste. So basically, food has to be broken down into very, very small units to actually be absorbed into your bloodstream through your intestinal lining. So what happens is your body actually needs to break food down into its smallest units. So that can be things like, for carbs, they have to be broken down into glucose or galactose or fructose, or proteins have to be broken down into amino acids, and vitamins and minerals have to be freed from everything else that they're attached to in food, and just that pure vitamin or mineral. And those small little things are what can pass through your intestinal lining, get into your bloodstream, and then you'll be able to use them. Now, if you're not breaking your food down thoroughly enough, then you're not able to absorb chunks of, a few amino acids that are still bound together. That can't get through your bloodstream. So you're going to end up with a lot of waste, and you're also going to end up wasting a lot of nutrients. Nutrient deficiencies are going to tie back again to you not being able to produce enough digestive enzymes and stomach acids. It's going to make your digestive system weaker, but also you're going to have all this waste. Now, when you have a lot of excess waste, this is just undigested food, you have more for the microbes to ferment and eat. And this, if you already have the first thing, which you probably do, if you've got bloating, if you've already got gut dysbiosis, and now you give more food to those pathogenic microbes that are already producing a lot of gas, they're going to produce more gas. Also, you have more waste that you've got to get rid of. So if you've got constipation paired with your bloating, like I did and like so many other people do, you probably have a combination of both of these first reasons. I certainly had both of them. And anyway, so you're going to have this excess food is going to kind of fill up your colon. So then you have the bloating and pressure from, too much waste that's, if you're constipated, not getting enough out quick enough. And you also have the pressure from that gas. The best way I could describe this feeling back when I was dealing with it was it felt like there were a bunch of rocks in my stomach. It felt like my whole digestive system was broken and I was never hungry. It just felt like my whole stomach would sink. It just felt terrible. Food didn't sit right. So if those are the kind of feelings that you're having, then this is what's causing it. All right, the third reason is if you have too much waste being fermented. So I basically already just touched on this, but there's another thing that can come into play here. So that's going to be fiber. So if you eat a diet that's too high in fiber, especially insoluble fibers, then that is going to add to that waste burden as well. So it could be that your digestive system is fine, you have strong stomach acid, you've got a bunch of digestive enzymes, you're breaking your food down well, but you could still run into this too much waste issue if you're eating too much fiber. So when I had really bad gut and digestive issues, I was vegan and vegetarian, flipped between the two. But anyway, I was eating so many plants and so many grains that I had so much fiber in my diet. It was a ridiculous amount, and it was just adding so much bulk to my stools and so much excess waste, and I was already struggling to get what I had out, so it just made it so much harder. So if you're eating a lot of fiber, it will worsen that. But then with the bloating, fiber is what your gut microbiome really eats most of the time. So if you have excess fiber and you have the gut dysbiosis, again, you're going to run into the same issue of the excess gas production, which is going to make you more bloated. And then also, like I mentioned before, just more waste building up in your colon is also going to lead you to feel more bloated. The fourth reason, I kind of touched on already, but I'll go a little more in depth, is you're constipated. So if you're constipated, it's just like putting a plug at the bottom of your GI tract that's going to hold all of that gas in if you've got gut dysbiosis and make you feel so bloated and full. So side note here, don't suppress your burps and farts. Obviously, there are times in life, social situations, where you don't want to just let one out real loud. But as much as possible, let them out. You can find ways to do it more discreetly, or, if it's your family, it probably doesn't matter. But don't suppress those, because that will keep that gas trapped in there and it won't give you relief. Like sometimes, if you've ever noticed before, sometimes you're bloated and you start farting a little bit and you actually get relief from that, or you feel a little nauseous or something funky up higher in your GI tract. If you start burping, it can actually relieve that feeling. So don't suppress those urges. They're there for a reason. So if you're constipated, it's plugging up your GI tract, it's leaving all that trapped gas in there. Plus, you've got all those stools sitting in there that are just going to push on the edge of your colon as well and make you feel more full and heavy and bloated. If you want to learn more about overcoming constipation, I talk about it all the time, so definitely subscribe, because I have lots of videos on healing your gut and constipation, and I already actually have a lot of videos on constipation too, so I will tag a playlist about constipation up in the corner and down below so you can check it out. All right, the fifth reason is you're stressed. So if you are stressed, it can affect you in so many ways. One, It can worsen gut dysbiosis and make more pathogenic microbes overgrow. It can also really negatively affect digestion in several ways. So if you are stressed, you're in the sympathetic fight or flight state. You're not in the parasympathetic rest and digest state. Now, these two states will affect where blood and nutrients and energy is drawn. So if you're in the stress state, it's basically taking blood and nutrients and energies out of your GI tract and bringing them into other parts of your body that you would need for like a fight or flight kind of situation. So it might bring it to your heart, so your heart beats faster, so you can run faster, and various different things like that. But anyway, the point is, if you're stressed, your body's not in this mode where it's prepared to digest food. You need to be relaxed for your body to release enough stomach acid, release enough digestive enzymes, and actually go through all these processes it needs to break your food down effectively. So if you're feeling really stressed, especially before a meal, it's really good to try to get out of that before you sit down to eat. So I have made dinner before in the past and been like, okay, it's time to eat, and just felt like kind of stressed, not very hungry, kind of sunken stomach feeling. And I've honestly just waited like 20 or 30 minutes and, watched something, read a book, sat outside, done something to just relax, then felt, okay, I don't feel that sunken stomach feeling anymore. I feel a little bit hungrier. Let's go eat. And it sat so much better than any time I've ever just forced it, even though I wasn't hungry. So it's really important that you're not stressed when you go down to eat. And also, it's important that you're not just stressed 24/7. That's really going to negatively affect your digestive system, because even beyond just releasing the stomach acid and the digestive enzymes and the bile and all that at the beginning of your GI tract, you need to not be stressed in order to move food through your colon and have bowel movements and have everything function properly. So another thing is, if you're stressed, it's going to worsen constipation, make it harder to have regular bowel movements. Then, trapped with more gas, trapped with more stools, not going to work well. But so there's so many ways that stress can lead to bloating, but those are the main ones. All right, so the sixth reason is if you have SIBO. So SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, is pretty much just gut dysbiosis, but in your small intestine. So most of your gut microbiome is in your large intestine, but sometimes if you have really slow motility and things are moving very slowly through your GI tract, then your microbes from your large intestine can start to grow up into your small intestine and overgrow. There are a few other things that can contribute. If you have low stomach acid, that can also contribute, because then sometimes you have more pathogens and bacteria in your food that didn't get killed off, that's now in the small intestine and starts inhabiting that area. So there are a few other things that can cause this, but pretty much if you have SIBO, so you have that gut dysbiosis, the pathogenic microbes in your small intestine, they are going to produce that gas and cause a lot of bloating in the center region of your stomach, because that is where your small intestine is. Your large intestine goes around the outside in the shape of an upside down U, like underneath your rib cage and on the sides, but in the center is where your small intestine is. So if you have a lot of bloating there, that can be from SIBO. So that's something you're gonna definitely want to heal, and I'll get into how to heal these in a moment. The seventh reason is if you have a poor diet. So you're not always going to bloat immediately after a food that doesn't work well for you. Now, that can be a tricky part here. It's not as simple as I ate yogurt and after that I bloated, or I ate a sandwich and after that I bloated. Now, there is certainly connections you can make here, especially the closer you get to healing, the easier this is. The more you narrow down of what works for you and what doesn't, the easier it is. When you're in the thick of it, of I bloat all the time, I bloat in reaction to everything, then the narrowing down what foods specifically you're bloating from isn't going to be a good focus for you right now. I'll tell you what to do instead in a second. Diet is very important. You want to understand what foods can bloat you, but narrowing down those specific kind of sensitivities is going to be really hard and not really beneficial at that stage. Now, later on, when you're healing and you're not bloating as often and it's just kind of every once in a while, then it's a lot easier to tell, because you can go, oh, I went out and I got a burrito. This is always my example. I used to get burritos all the time, and I used to bloat from burritos all the time. But like, if you're like, oh, I've been eating all my normal foods, feeling really good, and then I went out and got a burrito, and I felt so funky after I ate that, and later that day I was all gassy. I think it was from the beans. Then you can make those connections. So I very much believe in looking at your diet, making connections. You know your body the best, but also when you're just at that stage, you're bloating all the time, you have all these symptoms, you don't have to make all those connections yet, and you just have to understand what's causing it at the root and start working on healing that. So back to having a poor diet. So basically, if you're not eating healthy foods, like if you are having a lot of sugar and if you're drinking a lot of alcohol and you're having a lot of processed foods, that's going to feed the pathogenic microbes selectively, not the good microbes. So if you're feeding the pathogenic ones in excess, you're going to have more of an overgrowth. So like if you have candida overgrowth, if you get yeast infections a lot or thrush or something like that, you absolutely have this, and you should cut out all sugar and alcohol and refined grains like immediately if you want to heal that for good. But basically, yeah, so if you're eating processed foods, if you're not eating good foods, you're going to feed the microbiome. And then obviously if you're just not eating a good healthy diet, you're not going to get enough nutrients to make stomach acid, make digestive enzymes, repair any damage that's going on in your GI tract. There's going to be a lot of reasons that a poor diet is not going to work well. But yeah, that's the gist of it. Now let's talk about how to heal now that we understand what's causing your bloating. So if you know some of the things that I mentioned before are like absolutely positively that's you, then definitely work on those. And if you're feeling a little like, I don't know exactly which one it is, or you just want to be super thorough, I would really just work on all of them, because all these suggestions I'm about to give you help your whole digestive system. They help your health overall. There's no harm from doing these. They will only make you healthier. So the first thing you want to do is you need to rebalance your gut microbiome. Now I have a whole video on this. I'll link it in the corner and down below as well. But in essence here, you want to basically bring more of those good microbes in. So you've got to eat a lot of fermented foods. That's going to be the best thing to do here. So that could be kimchi, that could be fermented veggies, that could be sauerkraut, that could be yogurt, kefir, sour cream cheese is often fermented. So any of those good quality ferments is going to be awesome. And you also want to stop feeding the pathogenic microbes. So you don't want to have sugar and alcohol and refined grains either. And then you also want to avoid like microbombing things, is what I like to call them, because basically these are things that kill off a lot of bacteria at once, and it won't just kill the bad ones, it'll kill the good ones too. So that's going to be like antibiotics, hand sanitizers, harsh cleaners, any of those cleaners or soaps that say like kills 99.9% of bacteria. You don't want those because they're killing the good guys too. So anything that is very harsh on microbes is going to be harsh on the good ones too. So the majority of the time you don't want to use those unless you really, really have to. All right, so the next thing you want to do is to strengthen your stomach acid, your bile flow, and make sure you're producing enough digestive enzymes. So I have more videos on these. We'll start with stomach acid, so I will link that in the corner and down below. So for stomach acid, the main thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're relaxed when you eat, so your body will actually release the stomach acid. And you also want to make sure you're getting enough nutrients in your diet so that you can make enough stomach acid. Now, in the meantime, if you currently have low stomach acid, you can do things like drink apple cider vinegar water, and also make sure you're not drinking like plain beverages like water right with your meals or near your meals, because it's going to dilute the whole contents of your stomach and make it harder to digest everything. So ideally you don't really want to be doing that anyways, but you have a little more wiggle room when your stomach acid is stronger to have a little water if you want, but in general you want to avoid that with meals. All right, so bile flow, whole video on that, I'll link above and below, but basically fat is the main thing that gets your bile flowing. So you want to be eating enough fat in your diet. That will get your bile flowing. If you've got pale greasy stools, watch that video I have, because you definitely have bile flow issues. If you have gallstones, anything like that, you need to get your bile flowing. Basically, bile is made in the liver, stored in the gallbladder. When you eat fatty foods, it releases bile Also, bitter foods and acidic foods will release bile as well. So just make sure you're eating enough healthy animal fats. You can eat bitter greens to stimulate bile flow. You can have bitter herbs like dandelion or burdock. You can get those liver detox teas. I really like that for stimulating bile flow. You can also have like juice, like apple juice or grapefruit juice, or grapefruits or lemon juice, like lemon water, apple cider vinegar water. All of that's going to help stimulate your bile flow too. And that will help get it going again if it's a little bit weak right now. Now, digestive enzymes, talked about, you really just need to get all your nutrients in, make sure you're digesting your food well enough, and then you will make digestive enzymes and release those. All right, the next thing you want to do is no snacks and have at least 3 hours between your meals. So to make sure you're digesting your food good, or the best you can at the moment in your stomach, you need to leave at least 3 hours between your meals, because it takes about 3 hours, and it might take you longer if you're struggling with this right now, for your food, once you eat it, to be in your stomach, to churn and break down and then all move into your small intestine. Now, if you eat and then like an hour and a half later you go and eat, even if it's just like, oh, I just want to try this apple, like just a random little thing, it's adding new undigested food into the mix of partly digested food in your stomach. So it just kind of throws things off, because now that other food has to wait longer and churn longer to break down the other one. The other new food, the apple, might not get broken down thoroughly enough before it's moved on to the next stage. So it's really just best to eat your meal, digest it, move on, then start a new meal, and not to snack. Now, it's not the end of the world if it's every once in a while, but a lot of people snack or graze throughout the day without realizing it until they start paying attention or tracking their food, and it can be a huge cause for a lot of bloating and digestive discomfort. So I would just cut out snacks unless you're having like a very constructive snack. So if you have like 3 meals a day and 1 snack, and they're all spaced 3 hours, and each one you have protein, fat, and carbs in, that can be okay, but don't like snack or graze. It's really not good for bloating. And if you have trouble with your appetite too, it makes it hard to get like hungry enough for a meal if you're always reaching for something. So you also want to relax when you eat. I've talked about this a lot in this video, but also right after. So this is something that helped me a lot with my bloating and just digestive issues in general, is I started really focusing on relaxing after my meals and not getting up to rush off to the next thing, but to actually sit there for at least 10 minutes to just let my body start digesting food. And it's so helpful. And then at the end of the day, if you're relaxing after your meal, that's awesome, but don't lay down yet. You want to like stay sitting. You can like lounge back a little bit. That's all right, but don't lay down, because that's not how your digestive system is like stacked and meant to work. So you can get a lot of trouble digesting and just not feel very well, get a lot of indigestion if you lay down too quickly. So you want to wait at least 30 minutes after a meal before you lay down. But what I like to go off of more is how I feel. If I start laying down and I'm like, oh, I'm not ready for that, I just get right back up and I wait a little bit longer till I lay down. Okay, so you also want to cut back on fiber and difficult to digest foods. So something I actually didn't touch on earlier when I was talking about the excess waste is if you have difficult to digest foods that you're eating. So this would be something like cold foods, improperly prepared plant foods. So if you've got a lot of raw veggies, or you've got grains or nuts or seeds or legumes that haven't been sprouted or soaked or fermented, they're going to be really hard for your body to break down, and that's going to add a lot of excess waste. So any kind of grains, nuts, seeds, legumes you're eating, you want to toast, sprout, soak, or ferment before consuming, and you do want to keep those foods more minimal. And then for veggies, cook them, don't overdo them. Just don't overdo the fiber. Focus on most of your fiber coming from fruit. That's going to be a lot easier for your body to digest, and this will minimize the waste, and that will minimize the foods that can be fermented and turned into gas in your gut microbiome. It'll also help with constipation if you're dealing with that. Now, if you are dealing with constipation, you want to heal that at the root, and I have so many videos on that, and I have one video in particular that goes over all the root causes of constipation and how to fix that. So I'll link that up above and down below so that you can learn how to heal your constipation once and for all, and that will do so much for healing your bloating. Those were my two huge issues when I had gut issues, constipation and bloating, and the things that healed each of them really worked together to help the other one too. So you really want to work on both at the same time. All right, so then you also want to address stress at the root. So if you are feeling really stressed, you want to learn how to get into that parasympathetic state more often. And I have a video about it. YouTube only lets me tag 5 videos up above. So if I still can, I'll tag it up above, and otherwise it'll be down in the description below if you want to check it out. But basically, you need to find ways to address stress, to minimize stress, to get your body out of that stress state, to get in that relaxed state more often. And I go over a lot of practical tips on that, and I'm planning to make more videos on that too, because I think it's so helpful. That advice like be less stressed is not helpful. So yeah, if you want more advice on practical tips to be less stressed, let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely make more videos on that. And in the meantime, you can check out that other one I have, because I think it's pretty helpful. So then you also want to increase your motility and heal SIBO if that's an issue. So you want to make sure things are moving through your digestive tract quick enough that they're not sitting to be fermented more and more and more and create more and more gas. And if you have constipation, you need to get things flowing quicker too. So I have a video on improving your gut motility, so I'll link that one down below as well. All right, so you also want to eat a great diet. So yeah, I have a video on what I recommend for this, but I recommend an ancestral Weston A. Price style diet where you're focusing on nose to tail animal foods, eggs, dairy if it's tolerated, and then cooked veggies, seasonal fruits, seasonal veggies, and then some properly prepared nuts, grains, legumes, and seeds if you want. If you're struggling, you can cut that category out or just cut it way back. I cut it back to almost none when I was healing. That worked really, really well for me. Now I eat some, but I still keep that category pretty minimized. So I will link that video down below if I didn't already say that, about the 11 principles of an ancestral diet and what works best for getting rid of bloating. And then also you don't want to eat too early or too late in the day, because it just usually doesn't sit as well, and it can lead to a lot of bloating. Your digestion is stronger in the middle of the day. Now, if you would like more info on how to heal your gut, I have a free training that goes over how to heal your gut by getting your digestive system to work like a reliable machine. And in it, I go over the 5 keys for a successful gut healing routine. I talk about the importance of a personalized, sustainable, and nourishing diet and how you can create that for yourself. I go over how to have relieving, complete bowel movements effortlessly and daily. And I also talk about the biggest mistakes I see people make that can delay your healing by years. So if you want a really comprehensive training on how to heal your gut as a whole, this is excellent for healing bloating. Like I said, these are like the most helpful things I found in my own journey of healing chronic constipation and bloating and abdominal pain and IBS. So if you deal with those, this is excellent for you, but this also works for other gut issues as well. I work with people that have Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, acid reflux, gastritis, like all sorts of gut issues. So is it really focused on getting your whole digestive tract to work as best as it possibly can. So if you want to check that out, I will leave a link in the description down below. It's totally free, and it's a really jam-packed full of information video that will help you heal your gut. And yeah, if you want to check out any of the videos that I mentioned in this video, they'll be linked down below. If you want more info on healing your gut with an ancestral diet and holistic lifestyle, be sure to subscribe, because I talk about that all the time. And yeah, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in a future video.